the news.
There have been chaotic scenes in Ukraine's parliament over its decision to allow the Russian Navy to extend its stay in a Ukrainian port. Scuffles broke out in the chamber as opposition lawmakers voiced their anger and tried to unfurl Ukrainian flags. Smoke bombs were released and eggs aimed at the speaker, forcing him to take shelter under umbrellas provided by bodyguards. At the same time, thousands of people protested outside the building. Opponents say that by hosting the Black Sea Fleet, Ukraine could be dragged into any future conflicts Moscow has with other powers. This is a danger for the integrity of Ukrainian territory, this man says. Everybody knows that Chernomorski port is a stronghold of anti-Ukrainian policy. But government supporters who also took to the streets today argue the deal will help strengthen ties with Moscow and boost Kiev's struggling economy. The Russian fleet has been based in Sevastopol since the 18th century, and the region retains a strongly Russian-leaning population. Ukraine agreed to extend its lease until 2042 in exchange for a 30% cut in the price of Russian gas. Nothing unexpected is how Ukraine's president described the day's events in his country's parliament. Speaking during a visit to Strasbourg, where he attended a Council of Europe session, Viktor Yanukovych defended the deal to extend Russia's lease. The decision has been made within the framework of the constitution and it will be implemented, he said. Democracy is discipline, he added. But in response, Ukraine's former prime minister made it clear that for her, the deal is a betrayal of Ukraine's national interests. It's the first step, it's Sevastopol. After that, without doubt, if these gangsters will be allowed to continue with their policy, Crimea will follow. It's a black page today because Ukraine started to lose its independence. Yves Le Terme might well be looking for another job today after resigning as Belgium's Prime Minister for the second time in 3 years. His decision has left the country facing yet another crisis which could harm its economic recovery and its standing in Europe as it prepares to take over the rotating presidency. The long-standing problem over electoral boundaries between Dutch and French-speaking parties has once again caused the coalition to collapse. But to further complicate matters, the Constitutional Court has ruled that a solution must be found before new elections can be held. Nevertheless, the president of the ruling Christian Democrat Party of Flanders, Marianne Thyssen, is confident a deal can be reached so that elections can be held as planned next year. However, Belgium's Deputy Prime Minister, the man in charge of mediating talks, last night asked to be discharged, forcing the king to come up with a new initiative, something this woman believes is still possible. Maybe we need to do something out of the ordinary, she says. We need to find more creative solutions. But I'm a big believer in Belgian consensus building and the Belgian ability to compromise. The Flemish Liberal Party sparked the latest crisis by withdrawing its support for the government. Now many people are asking again if it's worth trying to keep the country together.
The mood against austerity in Greece is becoming increasingly bitter. Transport workers called a 6-hour walkout, bringing buses, trains and trams to a halt. Many oppose the government's strict economic measures. The hostility towards the unpleasant fiscal medicine emerged in a new poll. That shows 61% of Greeks are against going cap in hand to the EU and IMF for a €45 billion bailout. But Greece's PM insists the reforms will give the country new life. We're going through one of the most difficult moments that Greece has had for decades. The challenges our country faces are unprecedented, not only for Greece, but also for the global economy and for Europe. The responsibilities we have undertaken are historic. We're making decisive political decisions, decisive for the future of Greeks and for the future of Europe. Such words, however, look set to fall on deaf ears, with many people preparing to protest. For many years in Greece there has been this practice. It's not easy to change, this man said. What can we do? Sit on the couch and protest on Facebook? Maybe young people can do that, but workers don't have any other way. The protest should take place, this man said. We all have to do something, everyone has to act, because from what I can see, they're leading us to the edge of a cliff. The public outcry is also unnerving investors. Many remain jittery that reform may take a hit if anger grows into large-scale unrest.
The cost of insuring against Greece missing its debt repayments hit a record high after political murmurings in Berlin that cast doubt over Germany's role in any financial rescue. Greece has to make debt repayments on May the 19th. But the country formally asked for help last week and is currently negotiating terms for a €45 billion bailout with the EU, the IMF and the European Central Bank.
It is essential that the economic programme currently being prepared specifies comprehensive fiscal measures and structural reforms that will address the root causes of Greece's fiscal imbalances and structural weaknesses.
The prospect of Greece becoming the first Eurozone country to fail to repay its debt has also sparked fears of a domino effect amongst other shaky Eurozone economies. The cost of insuring Portugal's debt also hit a record high, and the euro weakened against the dollar. A weaker euro is good for exports to outside the euro area. On balance, we should see that Greece is a problem that can be dealt with and that has no impact on consumers' willingness to spend. Greek banking shares tumbled after comments from Germany that it could still deny financial aid unless Athens does more to cut its budget deficit. Those remarks prompted the head of the Greek central bank to call for deeper cuts than those in the government's austerity plan.
Germany has its first ever government minister after Aygül Özkan took over social affairs for the region of Lower Saxony. Özkan, a German national born to Turkish immigrants, took office on Tuesday. The 38-year-old caused uproar earlier this week when she said crucifixes should be banned in state schools. She should have known that her words would have been misinterpreted in the way they were. It was a mistake, and she accepts this. The whole government agrees we must have a close relationship with the Christian Church. We are glad to do so, and will continue to build upon this relationship. Özkan's comments caused friction with fellow conservative Christian Democrats, as the party is traditionally opposed to secularist policies. Media reports in Germany say Özkan has received death threats and is now receiving police protection. Lawyers for Panama's former leader Manuel Noriega have said his extradition from the United States to France is against international law. Noriega arrived in Paris on Wednesday to face allegations of money laundering. But his defence team say he cannot be prosecuted for crimes alleged to have been committed while he was a head of state. General Noriega has been notified of an international arrest warrant issued by the French prosecutor. He was very weak when he appeared in front of judges and is undergoing medical treatment. We plan to contest the irregularities in his extradition to France. General Noriega also enjoys immunity from prosecution as a former head of state. France recognises this convention, and we ask that immunity be applied in this case. Noriega is accused of laundering the proceeds of drug deals in French banks before using the clean money to buy luxury apartments in Paris. Noriega headed Panama's military dictatorship from 1983 to 1989. Thousands of French farmers are set to march on Paris today to call for more government aid to help them through the economic downturn. Falling prices and rising costs means many farmers are struggling to make ends meet. They want President Nicolas Sarkozy to intervene, as they say they could go out of business. We want to draw attention to the fact that our costs are exploding, even though the prices of products are going down. Our revenue is being absolutely crippled, and we want the government to do something to help us in this difficult time. But direct aid looks unlikely. The French public deficit currently stands at a record 7.5% of GDP. France is already the biggest beneficiary of the EU's common agricultural policy, swallowing up 20% of the bloc's €40 billion in farming subsidies.